This is Moral of the Story. Interesting people telling their favorite short stories and then breaking them down to understand what makes them so good. I'm your host, Max Chapovsky. Today's guest is Earlonne Woods, whose path has been, shall we say, improbable. E was raised in South Central LA, the same hood or group of hoods that Dr. Dre and Snoop brought to the mainstream in the early 90s. Like Dre, E was from a broken home. His father was a violent alcoholic who wasn't around much, and his mother was a postal worker who struggled to make ends meet. So Earlonne and his older brother spent time on the streets. When he was just 9 years old, Earlonne lifted up a faulty railroad crossing gate to allow cars to pass. Unfortunately for him, that was a federal crime. Adding insult to injury, the arresting officers claimed he was charging each car $1 to go by, despite the fact that he didn't have a penny on him when he was arrested. And like Snoop, Earlonne was attracted to the gang life. When he was just a kid, E and his friends, Julian and Juan, created their own gang, the Crip Boys, taking the name from the local gang, Shack Boy Crip. It was mostly harmless, but the older kids eventually noticed E, and he joined their gang, which by that time was the 76 East Coast Crips, operating on the east side of LA. At 14, he started selling weed and then cocaine. It was 1985, and Earlonne was experiencing the crack epidemic in real time. He didn't just have a front row seat, he was on the stage. When he was 15, Earlonne committed his first robbery with his brother, who had gone from selling drugs to robbing drug dealers. And at 17, he was convicted, as an adult, for the kidnapping and robbery of a drug dealer and sentenced to 10 years. After serving 6, he was released in 1995. On December 28, 1997, after a botched robbery attempt, Earlonne and his best friend Furman F-Dog Little found themselves in a police chase, and after losing control of the car, they jumped out to run. The police opened fire. 41 shots later, E and F-Dog were hit. E was lucky. The bullet just missed his heart. F-Dog was not so lucky. Hit in the back 5 times, he died at the scene. At the hospital, Earlonne had to call Furman's wife, the mother of a 1-year-old and pregnant with their child, and tell her that her husband was gone. But it got even worse. Unbeknownst to E, his juvenile convictions counted as his first 2 strikes under California's infamous 3 strikes law. This conviction for attempted second-degree robbery would be his 3rd. He was sentenced to 31 years to life and another 26 to life for assault with a deadly weapon. Dealing with his friend's death, Earlonne experienced unfamiliar emotions: loneliness, abandonment, bitterness, disappointment, shame, regret, fear, anxiety, anger. This would be his inflection point. He decided that he was done destroying whatever remained of his life. After over a dozen years and multiple attempts, E was finally transferred to San Quentin, a low-level, low-custody Level 2 prison with a media lab. It was still prison, but for E, it was practically Disneyland. The prison's media lab was where he created the Ear Hustle podcast with prison volunteer Nigel Poor, a visual artist and photography professor at California State University. The two met when Nigel came to the prison to talk about photography, and they immediately hit it off. They would record the show in San Quentin's media lab and use it to share the daily realities of life inside prison by those living it. On Nigel's suggestion, they entered the podcast into the Radiotopia PodQuest competition. And of the 1,536 contestants from 53 countries, they won. This meant the show would get picked up by Radiotopia and PRX, effectively giving them national distribution and access to more creative talent. The rest is history. Within months, Ear Hustle, which is prison gang for eavesdropping, was at the top of the iTunes podcast charts, and millions of people, yours truly included, devoured each new episode, ready to be taken inside, as the tagline went. It was an incredibly honest and completely unprecedented perspective. The podcast set Earlonne free creatively. What he didn't see coming is that it would also help set him free physically. In 2018, California Governor Jerry Brown commuted Earlonne's sentence, citing his leadership and his work on the podcast. E left San Quentin at 10 a.m. on November 30th, 2018, having served a total of 27 years in prison. He's been a free man for 5 years now, and he's been busy. He still co-hosts Ear Hustle, which is celebrating its 100th episode with a sold-out tour. He and Nigel co-wrote a book called This is Ear Hustle, which chronicles their journeys, and he advocates on behalf of those who have had their lives unfairly shattered by the 3 strikes law. He was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for audio reporting and has won multiple awards, including Apple Podcast Creators We Love and the Authors Inside Hope Award, which he says is, quote, the best award ever from my community. And so, from gang member to convicted felon to inmate to the creator and host of an award-winning podcast to fierce advocate for the oppressed and underrepresented, Earlonne Woods, welcome to the show, brother.
Say, man, I need to hire you, man. Take you on the road with me. Nah. Yeah, that was an opening. I think that was an opening. So, how you doing, man? I appreciate your words, man. That was a lot. Forgot about a lot of that stuff up in there.
Well, I'm glad to remind you, man. It was quite hard to tear myself away from reading about you as I was doing the research for this episode, because, man, what a journey.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, man. And you know, the good part is, coming on the other side of, a lot of oppression and crazy stuff inside prison. So to be out here for 5 years, enjoying family, enjoying friends, and continuing to do the work with a whole new career as far as, podcasting and other stuff. So it's been fun, man. I can say that it's been fun. I haven't taken myself too serious. I just been every day, just wake up, continue to go, continue to smile.
Just keep moving forward.
Yes.
And you got a big milestone coming up in a couple of years. You will have been spent more time free than imprisoned. I think it's coming up in 2 years, right?
No. Let me think. Let's go with it. You might be right. I spent a total of 27 years in prison.
And that will put you at 54 when you've spent more time out of prison.
Okay. You might be right there. I was thinking as an adult. Because I always tell people, like, my adult years in society currently is only basically 7 years, 10 months as an adult in society.
Yeah.
Because the first time when I got out, I stayed out 2 years, 10 months, and now it's been 5 years. So, as an adult, I've been free for 7, 8 years almost.
Well, whether you're in prison or juvie, every hour inside that place should count towards the total.
Oh no, definitely. No, real talk.
So you are here to tell us a story. Before you tell the story, is there anything the audience should know? Do you want to set the stage for the story in any way?
So when you first started out, when you started out and you was talking about, like, me going, like, say, on the first robbery with my brother at 15, this is back in that era, because this is when everybody is, of course, paranoid. Everybody, is living a certain life where, you have people that are drug dealers, you have people that are jackers, you have, this atmosphere of always needing a gun, always feeling you need a gun, So, being that you pretending to be these roles. So it goes back to that era.
All right, man.
It goes back to that era. And I hope I get it right.
All right. Well, let's go. Tell me a story.
All right, here we go, Max. So, when I was like 15, of course, one involved in gangs, which, was just more of a camaraderie with all your friends growing up. It just turned into something else as you grow, which becomes a gang, I was dealing with my brother, who was in the drug game at the time, and he went from, like, say, for instance, selling drugs to robbing drug dealers. So it became, like, real intense, So it was more of having guns just to have them, So this story come out of one time. He had just got 2 new guns. I think they were like 9mm or something. And we were, playing around with them, shooting them. So I take one in the house, and I, put my little thing of cleaning it. Right. So I cleaned this gun, and when I was cleaning it, the hammer, I guess it's called, or the top part of it, came off. It slid off. So when it slid off, the springs and the barrel and stuff was like, it was some stuff that came, some stuff relocated itself, right?
Yeah.
So as like a 15-year-old, I'm like, oh, and it's brand new. You know what I'm saying? We know it worked. We just shot the thing, just playing around. You know what I'm saying? So uh, I was in there putting this thing back together before my brother realized that I done took the thing apart. You know what I'm saying? He just spent some money on this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm in there putting it back together quietly, putting all the I forgot what you call it, the springs, this, that, and
Yeah.
there, and I get it to where it's like when I finally get it, it's cool, it's operational.
Hmm.
So I'm like, all right, cool. This is cool. So I don't never say nothing. I don't even pay attention to it. I just let it be. And later that day, he had took that particular gun with him when he was going because he's everywhere he had guns on him. So the next day he called me and he's like, yeah, man, man, somebody tried to follow me home last night, man, and when I had an opportunity, man, the thing was tripping. So I'm like, what's happening? What you mean? He said, man, I was leaving mom's house, man. He say, and it was me and one of his girlfriends, lady friends. He'd say we was leaving, and he noticed that a car was following him. And in this game, if somebody's following you, they don't mean nothing good. They're not following you to catch you to give you some money or to give you some flowers or some chocolate. They're following you for a reason, especially at that time. So he said he hit a few corners, they didn't, they was still back there, and he noticed them. So he went down this one street and he had the lady that was in the car with him, just sit there, and then when the car hit the corner, turn into the driveway. So the car had hit the corner. He's out the car at this moment in time, and he's behind a tree, and he's waiting for the car to come up. And when the car come up, the car is definitely looking to where the car that he was in just turned in. So when he run up on the car from their blind side, he I guess go to like to shoot into the car, and the gun don't work. So he ended up breaking the window of the car, and the car just take off because it's nighttime. He couldn't see what was up, and he just was tripping. And he jumped in the car, and they went on about their business. So the next day he had called me. He was like, man, told me what happened. Told me that, something was wrong with the gun. He could have called me that night and told me. So, and I still don't say nothing, and because it don't dawn on me. It didn't dawn on me that, I messed up his gun. You know what I'm saying? So, um, we talk about it, and then he ended up going over to one of his other lady friends' house, and he saw a car in the backyard that had a car cover over it, and he was just trying to figure out like what car was it that had a car cover over it. And when he lifted it up, it was the car with the broken window. You know what I'm saying? So one lady was just trying to see where he was going with the other lady, and his perception of it was, you're trying to follow me, to rob me, to kidnap me, to, you know what I'm saying, take revenge out on me for something I may have done. And you almost got it. You know what I'm saying? You almost got it. But had it not been for my little brother basically tinkering with that gun,
Oh my god.
so I don't know. You know, when he finally had told me that it was the other lady, and I told him, I said, you know what, bruh, what I didn't tell you was I was cleaning that gun and I took it apart and I tried to put it back together, bruh, and I thought I put it back together, but I guess something didn't act right, because again, I ain't gonna even say the world around her made that gun inoperable at that moment. You know what I'm saying? To give her, I'm just say to give her life, because people weren't playing in those days. People were on some other stuff. This is when they had just dropped all those, I ain't gonna say just, they had dropped all those tons of drugs into the community. So
Uh-huh.
it was a lot of money out there, and people were playing those games at the time. So I always think about that story to where, you know, Had it not been for that story could have ended totally differently.
I mean, it's crazy how different things were back then and how close people came to losing their lives and how needlessly a lot of people lost their lives because it could have been hearsay about somebody killed this guy and that guy came back to get him. And in this case, it wasn't even gang related.
It wasn't.
It was
nothing.
just jealousy. This girl was just jealous. She was suspicious.
She was just she was getting her evidence up. That's what she was doing.
Yeah,
I seen you over. You was with her, and and yeah, and that was crazy.
So you saved her life.
I look. So when you look at it, the essence of it, yes, because I don't know if he would have shot. I'm sure he would have. I don't know if she would have been hit. I'm sure she would have that close. You know what I'm saying? So I can't say what happened. I think what happened, and it didn't happen, which was by the grace of God. So that story always tripped me out is to where lives were saved in that moment of messing up the mechanics of a gun.
God works in mysterious ways, right?
God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes I always feel I'm anointed. Sometimes I always feel like I'm just touched. And, I know my mother pray a lot for the kid, and sometimes it's just like even in my life today, affecting people from far away. It's just, I'm a vessel. I feel I'm a vessel. I don't, things that have happened leads me in the direction of where, hey, you just a vessel. Just hold on, keep it moving, do you, Yeah.
I think you can make the case for that because of because your path is, as I said, improbable. So when you took apart the weapon, what you did was known as field stripping it. And there's 3 components that you end up with. If you exclude the magazine to the weapon, you get the lower part of the weapon where the trigger mechanism is, the handle. You get the slide, which is the top metal part that goes back.
Which I slid off.
Which came off. And then you get, so there's 4 total. There's 3 at the top. There's the slide, there's the recoil spring, and there's the barrel. This is, and I'm talking about non-hammer fired semi-automatic 9mm pistols. There is the slide, the recoil spring, and the barrel. And if you don't know what you're doing and you remove the slide, the recoil spring and the barrel fall out and you can't catch with your eyes how they were supposed to be before as they were falling out. And you're like, oh shit. And so I can imagine what you were going through as this happened because Trevor's older than you. You didn't want to get on his bad side and be like, dude, I'm so sorry. But why? But I'm curious, why didn't you just come clean and tell him, hey man, I fucked it up. I'm sorry.
Nah, I guess it's more of, okay, I can fix anything. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, oh, it's back together. It's good. I didn't, in my mind, I didn't come to the thing that, oh, this is inoperable now because I may have not done something. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Something I didn't do or something I put in backwards or something you know what I'm saying? Something may have popped out I didn't see. But I think once I put some of those things and that slide went back on, it was fixed for me. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this. You said they were brand new. Was it that easy to get guns in LA at that time? Brand new weapons that you could just go to somebody and get?
No, I think, there was a market for a lot of that stuff. I think I don't know, man. I would like to say they just pulled up and opened up U-Hauls and the back of it was full of that stuff, None of that. I mean, only thing I probably didn't see people with when I was growing up was bazookas. Yeah. Like real talk. Like everything else but a bazooka.
Fully automatic,
fully
Uzis,
automatic
whatever.
Machine guns, Uzis, countless. I mean, that's what it was a drug culture back then, and what came with those tons of drugs was probably tons of weapons, because I think that was the era where, a lot of individuals, especially African Americans, that was growing up in the South Central or in hoods or ghettos was seeing a lot of money, and it
Hmm.
was through the cocaine trade. It was through all that, and that was like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
where
when
a lot of
you,
things change. That's where I think, of course, over our history, that's where, when drugs are involved, a lot of things change. Jealousy comes about.
yeah,
Individuals, don't care, so they feeding this poison to everybody. They just, everybody for their own riches.
of course. And there's real money at stake because when you went from selling weed to selling coke, it was a 50x increase
Oh
in what you
yeah,
could take
very
home a day.
definitely. Yeah, especially and when you're young and you see that like that. I mean, you have to be you'd have to be somebody that's not affected by anything not to get involved in that when you're
Yeah.
seeing it come in, and then it might just be your friend who has the connection or the hookup that make all y'all rich.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of individuals fail for that because we was living how we was living.
Of course.
um and it's a trip too. And even on this subject, like, a lot of these dudes were older than me. A lot of these kingpin drug dealers, they was older than me. But one thing they were, to even do those operations where they were savvy businessmen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Savvy businessmen. And to run an organization like that and to get stuff where you need it, and it has to be a lot of, it's a major skill set. And I see a lot of those individuals are out now and they're doing great in the world because of their savviness. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about not in the world they came from, because when you
Hmm.
when you when you know better, you do better. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And sometimes it's only presented to you in a way where you think that's the way it has to be. Like, say for instance, some people, it's jobs presented to them. Some people, it's the drug game presented to them, and that's what they go after. That way
Hmm.
of money. So people get hooked on that. You get hooked on making that type of money. But again, I see a lot of those guys, they're out now and they're doing great. They're being very successful. They're involved in whether it's hip hop industry, real
Hmm.
estate. I mean, I see they doing great.
I mean, hustle is hustle, right?
Hustle is hustle. I mean, again, when you know better, you do better. And I think with the hustling game, you just take one product and replace it with something that's not illegal. You know what
Correct.
I'm saying?
Correct. I mean, have you ever heard the podcast Surviving El Chapo about the Flores twins?
No,
Oh, it's
no,
so good. I got to send it to you. It's basically
definitely.
about how these two twins who are from Chicago ended up rising to the top of his organization. And then once they got in trouble, and I think they were indicted, they decided to cooperate. And then they had to go undercover to try to take him down and wear a wire and all of this stuff. What's crazy about it is it made me think of your comment, which is the organization with which the cartel ran its operations was similar to what a Fortune 500 company would do in with
Hmm.
org charts and financial records and quarterly goals and P&L statements. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
this is
And your
insane.
under people, you got to make sure
Yeah.
everybody's making theirs, shipping, really, all that. Everything got to be on point. So, yeah, you are running a Fortune 500 company, straight
And
up.
actually, it's probably a Fortune 50 company once you consider, what kind of revenue it brings in.
Yeah, and then that's a whole nother thing. Where you gonna put that?
Yeah, exactly. A whole other problem you got to solve. That's probably
Whole
why they're
nother.
successful.
And I think that probably was the best problem ever to have. Where do you put it all? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
a trip. Just living that life, and then you have dudes that, like you were saying, in the premise of them, they get caught and they go tell on the people that help them get rich, which is that's a
Hmm.
of course it's a coward's way, to go just. You got caught. If the gig is up, go do your time. Whatever it
Yeah,
is, go do it. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
right.
Why shit on the next person?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It's the code. So you mentioned that after you got these guns, you went to go shoot them somewhere, did some practicing with them.
Hmm.
Where do you go and do that? Would you actually go to a firing range or?
Nah. Hey, the crazy part, like you can have these little areas. We was in LA, where you can get off a few. Even the backyards in your yards be so big, and we was so not even tripping that you are over here shooting a gun in your backyard. You know what I'm saying? But if the police come, they ain't gonna see nobody, and we done picked up the shell casings. But backyards used to be big on the east side. You know what I'm saying? And the crazy part is, I was thinking about this years later. I remember sometime, you might sit a hubcap on a gate, right? And you
Uh-huh.
might fire into that hubcap, right? Man, where is that bullet going?
Past the hubcap into the house that's across the
Past the
street.
hubcap into whatever it is, the alley, because you're just, your mind ain't there. You know what I'm saying? Your
Hmm.
mind isn't fully developed. Um, until years later, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. The things that you did back in the day and the stuff that could have happened that didn't, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind how close, uh, how, how many, people almost died. And I mean, setting aside for a minute how many people actually died, but how many people almost lost their lives for some meaningless shit. And, um, I
Yeah.
was, it's funny you mentioned picking up shell casings. Did anybody, because I was talking to somebody recently and they were like, the best weapon to have is a revolver because you don't leave
Because
shell
you
casings
don't leave
behind.
shell casings, yeah.
Yeah.
But you
So
but
like
you
for self-defense, but
yeah,
it's, you're limited to 6 or whatever it ends up being.
yeah,
Do you
exactly.
guys ever look at it that way? I'm curious.
I don't know. I think, especially in the community I come from, I think the bigger the clip, the badder you felt, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember growing up, we used to be on these little crews, and one of my friends had a little 25 or a 22, and he used to be like, I don't know why y'all laughing at this. This thing right here make you shut up. It was just the conversations back then that just used to be hilarious. But I think, yeah, the bigger the clip, probably. I mean, and then you say, like, was that stuff ready, easily accessible? I think when I was like 16, I had a Tommy back from like Al Capone days.
Wow.
I had a Thompson.
Oh my gosh.
The only
That's
difference
insane.
was the only difference was it didn't have the drum clip. It just
Uh-huh.
had the long clip. Um, but yeah, that stuff was like easily accessible.
And same with the ammo, same U-Haul truck. You
Same with
just
the
go to them.
ammo. Same with the ammo. Yeah, I think back then you probably could have went to like what was them little spots they had and bought ammo. I don't think
Oh yeah.
ammo was like major. You had to be an adult to buy ammunition. I don't think. I can't remember, but I think you could just go into. They used to call it like Track Auto or one of them little spots and just go in there and grab stuff. I think they might have changed it now.
Yeah. Now there are
They're
a
serious,
lot of restrictions, and especially for certain states, they won't even
definitely.
ship to certain states, to certain counties, to certain cities, municipalities, because there are state restrictions, but then there are local restrictions, municipal restrictions, county restrictions, and those can
Definitely.
be on the caliber, on the capacity of the magazine, on the weapon itself. I mean, it's restrictive. So
It's a trip because I always wondered, like, if this, I don't want to say like Wild Wild West, but if this was a nation that allowed people to be armed, would there be so much shit going on?
what do you think?
Because I don't know, because people are hesitant to run up on somebody that has a weapon.
Hmm.
They're very hesitant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if a person don't, then, at the end of the day, for whatever reason, they just looking at that as a means to an end, whether it's to gain some type of money or something. But I don't know. Maybe
Well, I think that's the argument that self-defense concealed carry advocates make. And when you talk about, the stickers that you see on certain places that say no weapons allowed in here,
hmm
if you were a criminal, where do you think you would go first? Probably a place that has a sign like that
hmm
because it's fish in a barrel, right?
there's something in there. If you got that sign,
Well,
yeah,
whether or not there's something in there, there certainly isn't anybody to
yeah.
defend that something, right?
True that. True that. The defenseless.
Yeah.
No,
So,
definitely.
as you think about that story that you told with
Hmm.
these crazy sort of coincidences and the accident of uh, reassembling that pistol, what is the moral of that story to you?
Man, it can be a gang of morals of that one, but whew, I don't know. We might have to sit back and think of the moral of that one
Let's sit back.
because that one little action, I guess, the moral of that is probably sometime God put you where you need to be.
Mm.
Sometime I needed to be in that situation. You know what I'm saying? I needed to be there or to be with my brother at that particular time to do that particular thing. You know what I'm saying? And even though I
Hmm.
wasn't around when anything else transpired, I did change the course of action.
You did.
You know what I'm saying? So, man, sometime I guess follow your intuition.
Yeah.
Follow your more of that. Follow your intuitions.
Well, it was like the time when you were with your buddies and you guys, somebody had an idea to run up on a rival gang. And then you guys got there and you were sort of staked out. And then one of your friends got up and was like, I'm not doing this.
My
And
boy
then,
Jap. Yeah.
yep. And then everybody followed him, right? So you can make the
Yeah.
same argument for that.
Make the same argument. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, the argument for that was just a little different, that argument was more of, bruh, somebody gonna tell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody gonna tell. So I guess it was the same because it straight snapped us out of what we was into, what we was trying to do. And guidance growing up is everything. It's a trip.
Hmm.
Now that I look at like, again, when you know better, you do better. Like, one of the things that I don't do and I try not to do is I try not to go places where people need guns.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't go like to clubs. I don't do the after hour. I don't. James Brown said it. I'm a firm believer in what James Brown said. James Brown said. I guess they was asking him about like after parties and stuff like that. He
Yeah.
say, "Bruh, I go home and go to sleep. Don't nothing, what good happened after 10 o'clock at night? What good happened? In the
That's
after
right.
party areas, people are drinking and they don't have their full conscious of what's going on, and shit happened. You just scuff somebody's foot, and now they want to take it to the next level. So yeah, man, it's yeah. I try to stay away from those type of places, man. I try to just go to sleep at night and wake up in the next morning.
That's right. And because you stay away from the after parties and the booze that adds a very flammable element to that situation,
Oh
you
no,
can
definitely.
wake up the next morning.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, as you grow older and you understand, it's like, man, life could be so cool, man, if, we just mind our own. You know what I'm saying? And leave everybody else alone. And yeah. So that's and it's a trip, like I was saying, like, that's the thing that a lot of me and my partners that done got out after these life sentences are trying our best to do, which is come back, heal these communities, go into these schools and like the same stuff I was doing, when I was young, trying to tap in with those type of individuals now. You know what I'm saying? One of the schools
Yeah.
that a lot of my partners we go to is Oakland Tech. You know what I'm saying? Tap in with those youngsters. The homegirl just took them on a trip to San Quentin, right?
Mm.
And to give them that, to see that, you know what I'm saying, they may hear about it, but to actually go inside and take a tour and just see what it's about and what it's looked like, and it could change one person in that thing, like, oh, I ain't going down that street no more. You know what
And
I'm
that's a
saying? I ain't
success.
hanging. Yeah, definitely. So that's what a lot of cats are into nowadays, man, is the therapy aspect of it, the
Hmm.
recovery aspect of it, trying our best to whatever we do is to assist and to help out, and it takes a lot, man. It takes a lot. You get pulled in every different direction, but we definitely out here trying to stay the course. And it's a long term game. This shit is a marathon.
It's a marathon.
You
And,
know.
speaking of therapy, you were kind of one of the pioneers of, trying to, or at least downplaying some of the stigma around therapy, because for you, when you when you were in prison, it was a way, it was, as you called it, the nuclear option to get you out of there so you could finally try to get to San Quentin instead of getting that CPP.
Now that
And
was the
so,
story. That was the story right there. That was the
yeah.
story. That was that right there. And it's crazy because they tried to kick me out of mental health therapy, right? Because they felt like, man, you all right, you okay. But I was like, man, it's cool to come in here and chop it up and have a different perspective, on prison or just life, period. And and it's not another prisoner, it's not a staff member, you know what I'm saying? So I played my way into that to leave the situation, but it was a door that I needed to open. I needed to go through that door, I needed to go through the mental health therapy door, it was interesting.
It's interesting to draw this parallel, despite the fact that it's not an exact parallel. But, you mentioned in your book that in prison, there's a stigma associated with going to therapy because
It is.
people are going to
Yeah.
think, oh, he's crazy, right? He's
Yeah.
mentally unstable, right?
Right.
And that could almost put your life in danger. And so I was born in Ukraine, and Ukraine was a part of the former Soviet Union at the time. It was part of the Soviet Union at the time. And mental health was not ever looked at as a real issue because the response to what now would be considered depression would be walk it off, right? Like go back to work and stop bitching about shit. Like what is wrong with you?
Right.
And so it was really similar. And then, and now I think, which is really fantastic for so many people out there, there's not as much stigma associated with that. It's like, hey, this is good for
Right.
you.
No, definitely. And I advocate that, a lot of people, anybody that's in prison should go through some type of mental health services to understand the causative factors of why you do what you do or why you did what you did. We can wake up and look at it as, oh man, it was a means to an end. I was just trying to make money. But why? What got you on that path? Why the traditional path didn't, but I'm just saying, just to have that, that outlet is very helpful because some people go to prison and you can go pretty much through your whole sentence. I don't care if it's 30 years and nobody ever asks you why you did what you did. They just did it to serve out a sentence. That's it. Maybe learn a trade or two that's offered. But now you're getting it to where, individuals are getting into the essence of it, to the criminogenics, to the understanding that and taking those type of classes and it's evolving to other prisons, so it's getting to a lot of the prisons, but they are now starting to offer those type of services. And again, I played my way into it just to lead a situation, and it ended up helping. And and
Yeah.
I and, and I contribute that too. I told that story not too long ago. I was on a panel and people was asking me like what was the most creative thing I did, let's say outside of ear hustle, right? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
shit, I watched the Zoloft commercial about 10 times and I said exactly what the ball was doing to the psych, and I was in. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I was depressed. You know what I'm saying? And
But in
that's how I
reality,
got.
you were. I mean,
I
in
were. I
reality,
was. I
when you
was.
walked into that
I
prison, you
was.
said, hey, I've been depressed since I came in here with that sentence.
Yeah, I was literally depressed and I didn't know it because it was just coming out in different ways. Or I might have thought I was having the blues or tripping, but I was going through something. So, being able to identify that and talk it out is definitely helpful
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is for anyone.
for anybody.
Now, you have told countless stories in your day of vastly different on vastly different topics.
Like today.
So today, your TED Talk, the panels, the show, even when you go to these schools and you serve as the role model for these kids, I bet you start your session with a story to get their attention and to drive the point home. So you've told a lot of these stories.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
So thinking of good stories, what would you say really good stories have in common?
Well, I think anytime someone can see themselves in that story, or they can, or that story itself may not have nothing to do with them, but it resonates with them, You know what I'm saying? I think
Yeah.
that's when you get into the art of storytelling, because being involved in it, it's a trip. I'm the king of story ideas, but the question is, are there stories behind those ideas?
Yeah.
And how do you flesh it out? You know what I'm saying? How do you find that middle? How do you find that ending that people can't predict or that people not going to conclude? That's the tricky
Hmm.
part of it, and for me, I think what they all stories have in it, if you can have it in there, is definitely an emotional feeling, humor, an emotional feeling, humor. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
that's, to me, even when I go back to listen to stories and take from them, I'm looking for the emotional aspect of it. What hits me? Because if it
Yeah.
hits me, I know it's gonna hit somebody else. You know what I'm
That's right.
saying? Um, and everyone is different. Like I probably got files of stories that we haven't completed because it's missing that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah.
That just won't let
Yeah.
it turn that corner. Um, but I don't know what the parallel. I would just say pretty much they definitely got to have those ingredients, man. That surprise, that element of somebody did something to get somewhere,
Hmm.
but because of they couldn't get there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sounds like you're teaching a storytelling workshop.
That
The
was it right
structure.
there. That was it.
So that's what makes for a good story. What makes for a good storyteller?
Somebody that can talk, somebody that can be articulate. I think you gotta be able to somewhat, and you know how people get on stage and they act it out. You know what I'm saying? When a person, you can sit down with a person and they can have a great story, but they can't articulate the story like it needs to be told.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're a person that can articulate and you can make people see it, and I know a few of them, hilarious. Um, that's a great story. If you can articulate what you're trying to say,
Hmm.
you can make a face and people just fall down because you're articulating, you're living it out, you're carrying it out. You know what I'm saying? So to me,
Hmm.
it starts with a person being able to be articulate, being able to get their points across.
I look to some of the great comedians of our time and
Hmm.
even prior generations. Like somebody that comes to mind now is Kevin Hart. If
Okay.
you imagine like his facial expressions when he's on stage telling the story, you could cut the story in half because half of it can be told with those facial expressions. He's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
animated.
Animated,
Yeah.
animation. Like some people can say it, but if they don't act out what they saying, you might not get it in the same cheery way. And
Yeah.
yeah, you have them. Like you know who my favorite comedian is now?
Who?
Ali Sadiq.
Okay.
Ali Sadiq. And whatever he's talking about, his facial expressions or his actions, hilarious, hilarious. I like Ali Sadiq. He's a conscious person. I like a lot of them. Dave Chappelle, but I like a lot of them. But I was just looking at Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Eddie
Hmm.
Murphy. You know what I'm saying? So on Instagram, you'll see a lot of those Red Fox clips. I stay sending me and Lieutenant Robinson, that's on the Ear Hustle. Sam, we stay going back and forth with those Red Fox clips we find. Hilarious, man.
I mean,
Hilarious.
Richard Pryor, obviously a classic. Eddie Murphy. So my wife and I, when this is before we were still dating at the time, we threw a viewing party
Mm.
for Eddie Murphy Raw. And we literally
Oh,
just got like 40s and because you had to be on brand. And we invited a bunch of our friends over and we literally watched this thing and we were crying because
yeah.
his level of animation is off the charts.
Wait a minute. Was Raw the red or the purple?
I think Raw was the red.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
Raw
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
red.
Yeah. 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 Eddie has been a fool forever. That's one thing I can give it to Eddie Murphy. He got timing. Eddie Murphy is like, I was just looking at one with him and Richard Pryor at something last night where Richard was like, "Man, this is a cute girl over there." Eddie was like, "Man, that's my fiance. Man, stop looking at my feet. This is about you." And he,
Totally. Even that exchange.
that exchange, man, it was a trip. Them two dudes, I think Yeah, I think it's been a lot of comedy with them two.
Oh, it's so good.
But comedy,
So
man,
good.
it's just being able to act it out, and you have a lot of them. You have a lot of cats that can do that.
Totally. Totally. Now, when I asked you if your story, what was the moral of your story? You said, hey, let me just think about this for a sec. So here's the corollary to that question. Does every story have to have a moral? And if it doesn't, is it still a good story?
I don't, I would think that you're gonna find whatever moral you're gonna find out of it. You know what I'm saying? So every story might end up with, hey, the moral of that was, hey, don't walk across the street. You can get hit by a car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think you'll be able to deduce something from them. But I think like some stories don't have to be beginning, middle, and end. Some stories can just happen. You know what I'm saying? Because, sometime we might not have a beginning, middle, and end, and we just stick a story within an existing story because that's as much as we got of it. You know what I'm saying? We didn't get the end. So to answer that question, that's a good question. I don't think so. I don't think so. But we will arrive at some deducement.
That's what I think. I think there might not be an explicit one,
Right.
but if it's a good story, there's something there to be learned from it.
Mm-hmm. Because I was just telling somebody the other day, we was talking about a student, a kid, and I said that story can go even without words.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
People can just the act of whatever was being done to the next to the next to the next. You don't even need words for it because people can see it. You know what I'm saying?
It's really interesting you say that because one of my kids has a children's book. It's like one of those cardboard books for toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
And there are only words on the first and the first 2 pages and the last 2 pages of the book. And the rest of it, you understand what they're doing because they're just illustrations.
Right.
Because the first 2 pages set the stage and they kind of explain to you like what's going on. And it's about these three characters, and two of them are going over to give this third one. I think her name is Bink. The two of these characters, they go to give Bink her birthday present, and they bake this cake. Right, one of them bakes the cake, and then as they start to walk over, the other one says, "Hey, I'm hungry, and this is a great cake. Can I have a slice of it?" And then for the next few pages, the guy, it's illustrated that he keeps asking him for slices of the cake, and he keeps giving him the cake, and he gets more and more sad because more and more of the cake is gone. And by the time they arrive at Bink's house, she lives in a tree, all they have left is the cherry from the top of the cake. And what makes the story so good is they're standing there, they're knocking on the door, and they're both just completely dejected because one of them is like, I baked this cake, the whole thing is gone, I'm so sad. And the other one just feels super guilty about eating this entire cake. And she opens the door and she ends up loving her gift, which she thinks is a cherry.
Mm-hmm. That's
You know?
it. She don't know nothing about the cake.
No, she's like, oh, you got me a cherry. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
You know?
that's what's up. No, definitely. And then I know that type of book when you talking it to a kid, you're basically coming up with your own narrative to this story
Which
on
is
each
exactly what I
page.
do. Which is exactly what I just make shit up and they love
Make
it.
shit up. They love it because every time they get something different. Same
Totally.
book, different story.
Exactly. Exactly. So speaking of books, what is one of your favorite books that you would say just nails the art of storytelling?
Whew. Well, I think it probably was the last book that I read in prison, which was, it should have been like one of the first books I read, but it was the last book. And it was by, what's his name? Powell something, which was The Alchemist.
Oh, what a great book. Paulo Coelho, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah. The Alchemist was a good storytelling book
So good.
because that book tells a story, a whole circle of stories, right back to the beginning. Yeah,
All within one structure.
yeah. Just I was really amazed by that book because it's a trip. One of the cats on death row we interviewed, we was talking about books, and he kept bringing that book up. I say, man, I've been hearing about this book so long, I gotta read this book. And I ended up reading it, and that was like probably the last book I read in prison. I got this other book right now, this Walter Mosley book that I'm reading currently. I think it's called Unseen.
Hmm.
I just started it on the plane, and I'm only like 10, 20 pages in. But I got to finish that book because I'm trying my best to bring books into my life. Because I haven't dealt with them. Sometimes I just I audiobook that shit quick, which
Hmm.
is good. Audiobook is good, but I just wanted
Yeah.
some. I wanted to some page turners.
Well,
Yeah.
have you read Jay-Z Made in America by
Mm.
Michael Eric Dyson?
No, no, no. Wait a minute, Eric. Ain't that the guy,
Michael Eric Dyson, the professor,
the
and
professor that talk
he's
about astrology and world?
oh no, you're thinking of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Also,
Oh,
also an
oh,
interesting dude.
oh. Okay, I was about to say, damn, he writing on Jay-Z.
I bet you that would be fascinating to get Neil deGrasse Tyson's take on Jay-Z. Can you imagine?
That's my homegirls and them. They live by him. I'm talking about they live by him.
Yeah. Well,
Now that
he
can be
he actually
interesting.
also wrote a book called something like Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, and I got it,
Mm.
and it's actually pretty entertaining. Like if you,
All the
because
time.
he's so irreverent and sort of self-deprecating that that it's good. But this one might be a good one to put on your list because he breaks down some of Jay-Z's lyrics, and he talks about the different parts of his life and how he isn't just an artist, but and a brilliant artist, but he talks about his place in hip hop culture and American culture, and it's a pretty good read. I would definitely, and
Mm.
it's not long, but it takes a while to get through it because it's heavy. It's like dense, you
Damn.
know.
Yeah, I got you.
So that's something I would check out. So, last question for you, E.
Yes.
A lot has changed in your life
Hmm.
from when you were 20 years old. I'm going to actually go back to 17 years old because I normally
Okay.
say 20, but 20 wouldn't apply to you because I think you were already in prison at 20,
Yeah,
right?
I left at 17. Just turned
Yeah.
17. Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you could say one thing to your 17-year-old self,
Hmm.
what would it be?
Don't pretend. Probably don't pretend because a lot of stuff that we do out here or was doing out there was pretending to be something that we weren't. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And just be you. Follow your heart. Don't follow the popular or the what's going on. Just step back um, and do it the right way. It's just pretty much the same thing I tell all the young cats today that's growing up. Like, bruh, I know you see this. I know you want a part of it. You know what I'm saying? But wait your turn. Do it the right way. It's
Wait your
gonna take. It
turn.
might. It might take a little longer, but you gonna be grounded in your own foundation. You know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be just that much sweeter. So just wait your turn, man. It's gonna happen.
Wait your turn. That's good advice for anyone, man. That's great advice.
Definitely.
Well, that does it, brother. Earlonne Woods, an incredible person with an incredible story, who has turned his life around and is making a real difference. Thank you for being on the show,
Doing my
man.
best, man. Thank you for inviting me, Max. I appreciate that, man. It was a good, like I say, my last few days was crazy, so it was a good down, just chill, kick
Yeah.
back, you
Well, I
know,
told you, man. This is one time where you don't have to be a host. You could just relax and be a guest. Just be
just be
yourself.
a guest, man. Real talk. Definitely
So,
appreciate it.
so by the time this episode goes live, E, you're gonna have a book that is out called Grammar Squad Therapeutics. Tell
Well,
me a little bit
I'm
about
I
that
know.
book.
Yeah, it's just so this is a book. I got it right here. Boop.
Yep.
So this is a book. Usually, I have. Matter of fact, hold on one second. So I say this. You know, when I get cats that's in prison and they reach out to me like, bruh, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the leaf I'm turning. And I'll be like, well, what else do you need? They be like, oh man, well, I'm trying to do this. So the first book I published for some cats in prison was this called uh, what it means is I once was, now I am. I own, I
Ooh,
am. You know what I'm saying? And this is pretty much a self-help book to help cats, get past gang violence. How do they identify certain things? And the cats that actually helped them publish this, they actually now have a publishing company called Authors Inside. You know what I'm saying? That also helps other individuals inside publish it. So when I did that one for them, now that they have a nice organization that help others, I went to them and I say, hey, I want y'all to help me publish this one now. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So just to make this cycle keep going, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So they're doing this one for me. I told you, even though I pay for everything, I just want to be able to utilize y'all services, you know what I'm saying, to get it done. But what Grammar Squad Therapeutics does is it takes the individuals, say for instance, no matter where you at, but I'm going to just say prison, those cats that's too hard for the yard. They're in their 40s, they're in their 30s, they're in their however old you are. They probably didn't go to school, or they probably did and they forgot everything. What Grammar Squad Therapeutics does is it just helps you basically learn that again. You know what I'm saying? It teaches you the 8 parts of speech again, and how to change your thinking and your behavior. So in the next few months, one of my partners that actually wrote this is getting out, and my mission is to help. His name Larry Davis, is to help him, kind of get into this industry and speak his piece, because he's a very thoughtful individual, and I see what's going on the in social media and on the internet today, and I think he's going to be a breath of fresh air, because we're going to really, really figure out how to heal the gang individuals out there that found change in such an oppressive and crazy place like prison or wherever it
Yeah.
at. It could just be in someone's mind, but we definitely on the mission to do some changing. So that's 2024. Um, Definitely I should be executive producing some cool stuff.
That's
And
amazing,
it's gonna
man.
deal with this Grammar Squad Therapeutics, and how do we get individuals to change their mindsets in these schools.
Well, I think it's fantastic because on one hand, you're going out into schools and helping the younger generation, giving them some of the guidance they maybe don't get at home. But
Indeed.
you're doing something really critical, which is reaching back into the prison system to help people who are incarcerated still, whether or not
Mm-hmm.
they're getting out anytime soon, and help them up, which
No,
is
definitely.
the
Again,
easy way is not to do that. The easy way is to
yeah,
say, hey, I'm done, I'm out, I don't want to
I'm
have
out.
anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're doing the harder and I think more noble thing, so more power to you, man.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. It's a mission, but we finna get it done though. Slowly,
That's
but
right,
we gonna
man.
get there. We gonna get there.
Slowly, but you'll
Slowly.
get it done.
It's a marathon.
That's right, man. Well, E, thank you, man. For show notes and more, head over to mosspod.org. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast on. This was Moral of the Story. I'm Max Trapowski. Thank you for listening. Talk to you next time.